Welcome to Bible for Overcomers. So, was the first advent of Jesus Christ, his first arrival, foretold with great specificity in the Bible? Yes, there are numerous passages in Psalms and elsewhere about his sufferings, about his arrival, about the rejection of him by the Jews, and how the gospel would then turn eventually to all of the world, to include all of the Gentiles. In other words, anyone that's not a Jew. But in Zechariah chapter 11, we have great detail about this rejection, the penalty for it, even about the price that was paid by the Pharisees to Judas. Let's just go over this because this is amazing. Zechariah chapter 11, and I'm just going to start, let's see, I'll just start with Verse 7, and I will feed the flock of slaughter, even you, O poor of the flock. And I took unto me, so this is God speaking, because the context here is Israel rejecting Messiah. And I took unto me 2 staves or staffs, the one I called beauty, and the other I called bands. Now beauty is the grace of Jesus, the grace of God towards his people, his protection. And bands, I take this to mean the connection between the tribes, between Judah and Israel. That's how I'm understanding it. But anyway, I took unto me 2 staves, the one I called beauty and the other I called bands, and I fed the flock. 3 shepherds also I cut off in 1 month, and my soul loathed them, and their soul also abhorred me. Then said I will not feed you, he that dies, let it die. And that which is to be cut off, let it be cut off, and let the rest eat, every one the flesh of another. And I took my staff, even beauty, and cut it asunder, that I might break my covenant which I had made with all the people. Now this really was fulfilled just shy of 40 years after Jesus was crucified, with the devastation of Jerusalem by the Romans. The Romans had it with the rebellions of the Jews, and so they just completely leveled this, the holy city. And that started the diaspora, the scattering abroad of the tribes of Israel. Okay, and I know some people will talk about the 10 lost tribes during the Assyrian invasion of the northern kingdom of Israel, the 10 tribes that were in the north. But regardless, here, the Jews that are still identified as living in Jerusalem at the time of Christ, at the time of the early church, now they are dispersed forcibly by this mass destruction in AD 70 of Jerusalem. So, and I took my staff, even beauty, my grace, my protection, and cut it asunder, that I might break my covenant, which I had made with all the people. And it was broken in that day. But the poor of the flock that waited upon me knew that it was the word of the Lord. So now when Jesus came, that early church was made up of Jews. And then, of course, Peter to Cornelius, and the gospel went forward, and then Paul and Silas and Barnabas are preaching on the missionary trips, and you have the Ethiopian eunuch, you have all of this going on. But at the very beginning, they were Jews, the first Christians. And just for a brief spell, and it says, but the poor of the flock that waited upon me knew that it was the word of the Lord. Let's just skip forward real quick to Romans chapter 11, which is a lot of, I guess you call God's sovereignty, right? Calvinism, predestination, all of that. But let's just look here. It says in verse 2, God has not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Do you not know what the scripture said of Elijah, how he made intercession to God against Israel, saying, remember when he was having a pity party, when he ran from Jezebel, went down south, holed himself up in the mountain, and God spoke to him, and he says, I'm the only one that serves you, God. Everyone else has given up. But what said the answer of God unto him? Verse 4, I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. Even so, at this present time, Paul is saying, also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. So back here, Here's the election of grace in verse 11, Zechariah 11:11. And so the poor of the flock that waited upon me, key verb right there, waited upon me, knew that it was the word of the Lord. And I said unto them, unto Israel as a whole, unto the nation, if you think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So what did they do? They sold Jesus out through Judas for 30 pieces of silver. And you know this from the Gospels. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter. And as you know, that Judas killed himself in the potter's field. He killed himself, became the potter's field, but that money was given toward that graveyard, toward people who didn't have enough money to be buried. And cast unto the potter a goodly price that I was prized at of them, or estimated. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Then I cut asunder my other staff, even bands, that I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. So that is the first advent, foretold very specifically. And the destruction of Jerusalem, all of this transpired. But yet, then in the next set of verses, just the next 4 verses, we go all the way forward now, toward the end of the church age, into the tribulation, and we'll end with this. And the Lord said unto me, take unto thee yet the instruments of a foolish shepherd, for lo, I will raise up a shepherd in the land. This is why I believe personally that Antichrist will be a Jew who will come out of the land. For lo, I will raise up a shepherd in the land, which shall not visit those that be cut off, neither shall seek the young one, nor heal that which is broken, nor feed that stands still, but he shall eat the flesh of the fat, and tear their claws in pieces. Woe to the idle shepherd that leaves the flock. He's part of the nation of Israel. He's part of the Jewish people. He is the idle shepherd in the land who does not care at all for his fellow Jews. And it says, woe to the idle shepherd that leaves the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. And then if you look here in Revelation 13, it says, and the beast out of the sea, and I believe that this is Antichrist. And verse 3, Revelation 13:3, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? So, anyway, I don't want to get all caught up in Antichrist. But the point is that this minor prophet, Zechariah, has some very specific, even though the visions are difficult for many people, when you get here to the end, 11 through 14, you've got the end times, with 14 being a complete expose on the millennium. So I just think it's very interesting. This is the first advent, totally foretold here, hundreds of years before the arrival of Christ. And that's it. And I'm going to be quiet, and that's all I got. Read the minor prophets, so many things hidden in there, and just remember not to get the chronology messed up, because many times when a prophecy is given, the prophets see it, they read it as one view on the horizon, and the reality many times is that there's a great gulf of time between the first part of the prophecy and the end of the prophecy. In fact, sometimes it spreads across dispensations, from the church age to the tribulation to the kingdom age of the millennium, and then to eternity future. There's 4 epochs right there. And many times when you read the prophecies, that's the way you think that it all is a one event, but many times there's a gulf of space and time between them. Anyway, be blessed.